such a good girl. Come on, Rube. Approach you, or do you...
Charlie Castaneda and Brody Reiman first met in art school 14 years ago. They've been collaborators ever since, in art, work, and life.
I think for other artists, they approach the idea as collaboration as the piece. And I think for us, it's almost worked the opposite, where we started collaborating and then became artists.
They think it's time to go, so that's why they're walking that way. Hey, Molly!
In the art world, Charlie and Brody are known as a single entity, Castaneda Reiman. But they've also worked together in a series of day jobs, as dishwashers, construction workers, and now in their own dog walking business.
No. Good boy.
Castaneda and Reiman are pretty amazing as people. I mean, and obviously the fact that they're people that, you know, have been working together for years, they live in the same house, they have a business together, you know, and they're not a couple, and I think that that's kind of an amazing thing.
Charlie and Brody's experience together in construction informs much of their current artwork.
The way we do our landscapes are, a lot of people read them as paintings, and in a sense they are, but they're just with all construction material.
One of the things about the fact that Castaneda Reiman use very recognizable material, I think, is something that makes it very accessible. I mean, I think we all have it, you know, we may not all work with bronze in our kitchens, but we all have like floor tiles, or we all have carpeting, we've seen insulation. So I think that there is something very universal, or at least universal suburban or something, about their work, you know, that we all have a kind of very physical, tangible connection to their materials.
Whoa. I just fall over. Ah! Did you get that?
In an average week, Charlie and Brody spend upwards of 80 waking hours together. And there's little to distinguish between work and play.
So that becomes a little bit problematic sometimes, and that our significant others don't understand that when we're at Chow drinking beer and eating a burger, that we're actually working, and it's part of the process.
And I'll have the special sandwich.
The special sandwich. Do you want...
The project we're working on now is for a space in New York called Docket Contemporary. For the past few months, we've been working on pieces that are going to get shipped to New York. So they'll be kind of partially done in our studio and then built on site and completed there in New York. So what do we need?
Plywood. Number one. Shipping is like a week away. So the closer we get to shipping time, the more stressful it becomes. And so the less fun a trip to Home Depot actually becomes. If we haven't eaten when we go into Home Depot, we get really passive-aggressive with each other. We'll walk into Home Depot.
It's the only time we fight.
It's the only time we fight, really. Woohoo, Home Depot.
Okay.
Screws?
Let's get some screws. Do we need this many?
Absolutely, we need this many. Should we go look at different stuff, like inspirational stuff?
Well, I think when on our way to somewhere else, when we're actually in the studio, it's a pretty small percentage of the larger process.
For us, it's more about what do we do in our house, and you know, if we're walking dogs or everything else that comes into making our work, that's all the stuff that makes our work. It's not sitting in the studio.
Over the years, Charlie and Brody have explored an astonishing mix of subjects and imagery, often drawn from their occupations outside the art world. A mix evident throughout the home they share.
Come on.
And then it's our house collection.
We love houses and landscapes.
It's pretty obvious, so.
These are little houses. Let's see. Oh, and Brody's new thing is the ship in the bottle thing.
So we had to thematically decide what each room was going to be so that the collections could kind of exist within that instead of being crazy. So we decided the living room would just be landscapes and houses and suitcases and paint by numbers. and birds and bottles and
Well,
deers.
birds used to be a big thing too.
But yeah, and I think that's...
But really still the biggest things I think are just our houses and landscapes.
Yeah, definitely.
And dogs.
And dogs and deers.
Oh, and deers for you. I don't do deer. I don't collect deers.
Okay, so this is my room. I think the newest collection is the tree collection. There's just been this obsession with trees and miniatures and the idea of scale. So it's kind of a mini installation in here, but I just wanted it to live in a log cabin and had logs milled so they'd be half logs. So any type of landscape on a half log. And now I had to narrow it down to hand-painted collections because it just gets too big. I've narrowed everything down. It's very minimal at this point, though maybe you can't tell. Instead of trying to fill that area, which was originally what we were gonna do, kind of.
Yeah, that's not what I was picturing today.
Castaneda Reiman are in Manhattan preparing for their show at Docket Contemporary Gallery. 2 days before opening, they're building the remaining structures for their site-specific installation called Floor Plan Landscape.
This grouping is part of a newer body of work where we're dealing more three-dimensionally with the idea of landscape than two-dimensionally. Beep. So, beep.
We've used the idea of the trees a little bit differently than we previously have. Previously we used them in terms of perspective. Here we've started to use them in terms of using the idea of the regeneration of the trees, which again is kind of ironic because there are these trees that are obviously not going to regenerate. So they are like these little saplings growing next to the trees. So we found kind of a new use for the smaller trees. I'm half of the artist. Yeah, I'm Charlie Castaneda, and Brody is the redhead, the beautiful redhead that's running around.
I'm just giving you the
Our process goes beyond just what we make in the studio. It's like we've built a life together for the last 14 years, and everything we've done it together. We've worked together. So a lot of our influences, where our work comes from, we've built it together. So it's like a marriage. You know, it's like these are our children.